Welcome back and thank you for joining me today as we explore one of the most unbelievable discoveries in the world of rare coins, a discovery so astonishing that it continues to shake the numismatic community and captivate collectors around the globe. Today we are diving deep into the remarkable story of the 1965 Liberty Quarter Dollar, a coin that was created during a time of major changes in the United States Mint, a coin that most people assume is common, ordinary, and worth only a quarter. But hidden beneath that everyday appearance is a mysterious class of rare and extraordinary pieces that some experts believe could be worth as much as $1,204,000,000 due to their extremely limited survival rate, unintentional minting anomalies, never-before-seen mint mark complications, and unusual metallurgical traits that emerged during an experimental phase of coinage transition. What makes this coin so special, so shocking, and so valuable is not just one error or one mistake. Instead, it is a combination of minting circumstances, transitional metal inconsistencies, accidental die variations, undocumented striking processes, and historical decisions that collided at precisely the right time to produce an impossibly rare treasure. Before we move forward, imagine holding a quarter from 1965, a year that millions of Americans simply tossed their coins into pockets, jars, change trays, and counters without ever considering that any of them could be worth more than a cup of coffee. No one had any idea that a tiny fraction of these coins might come with mistakes so dramatic, so out of place, and so significant that they would eventually be recognized as priceless. Some collectors today believe that the rarest types carry the potential to reach astronomical values at major auctions, values like the unimaginable figure of $1,204,000,000, a number far beyond what anyone would reasonably expect from a coin minted in the midst of the United States' largest metal composition shift in modern history. This script will take you into the depths of that story, a story of confusion at the mint, hurried decision-making, unnoticed defects, secretive production methods, and coins that should never have existed in the first place. To fully appreciate why the 1965 Liberty Quarter Dollar could reach such staggering worth, it is essential to go back to the conditions under which these quarters were created. The year 1965 was unusual because it marked the official end of silver in circulating quarters. Prior to this year, quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper. The rising cost of silver, combined with national coin shortages, forced the government to create the Coinage Act of 1965, a law that ordered the mint to remove silver entirely and replace it with a clad composition of copper and nickel. This change was happening rapidly, and workers inside the mints at Philadelphia and Denver were under extraordinary pressure to meet the enormous demand for new coins. The minting machines were constantly running, and dies were being replaced, adjusted, or reused at an intense pace. With such quick transitions, the perfect environment for rare and unpredictable errors emerged. Not only was 1965 the first official year of clad quarters, but it was also the year when mint marks were intentionally removed from coins to discourage people from hoarding specific mint issues. That alone created confusion among workers, historians, and collectors, because even though mint marks were supposed to be eliminated entirely, there are persistent stories and ongoing investigations suggesting that a small number of experimental coins might have been struck with leftover dies that still bore mint marks, including a few specimens that may have retained an S or D mark. These coins would be considered among the rarest in existence, almost mythical in nature, because if even one genuine mint-marked 1965 quarter exists, it would contradict the officially recorded minting policy of the United States government at the time. For collectors, that contradiction turns an already scarce anomaly into a priceless artifact. When we talk about the possibility of a 1965 quarter reaching a value of over $1 billion, we are not referring to any regular quarter from pocket change. We are talking about a coin that belongs to a category so rare that only rumor, research, and highly guarded private examinations have even hinted at their existence. These special quarters emerged during moments when leftover silver planchets were accidentally fed into the minting presses, creating the now infamous 1965 silver error quarter. These coins are not supposed to exist, but a handful have been confirmed. Their extreme rarity already makes them desirable, but what we focus on in this script are the ultra-rare versions beyond that, the nearly impossible combinations of silver composition, incorrect planchets, misaligned dies, doubled designs, rotation errors, reeded edge inconsistencies, and unexpected mint mark reappearances that defy both logic and minting regulations. Imagine a coin struck on a leftover 90% silver planchet meant for a 1964 quarter, then struck by a die intended for testing a new clad composition, but the die itself had been modified from an earlier die that still had traces of a mint mark. Imagine the press that struck the coin being misaligned by a fraction of a millimeter, causing the image of liberty and the eagle on the reverse to shift slightly off-center, while also impressing microscopic doubling on the date and lettering. Now imagine that this coin, after being struck, was fed through an automatic edge reading machine calibrated for the new clad planchets, causing the reeds to cut too deeply into the softer silver. The result is a coin unlike anything recorded in the mint's production logs. A coin that blends elements of the past composition, the future design changes, and unintended machinery behaviors all at once. That is the type of coin whose value could theoretically surpass $1 billion if authenticated, documented, and auctioned publicly. Collectors know that transitional errors are some of the most desirable finds in numismatics. Transitional errors occur when coins are struck with a composition, design, or die combination from different years. The 1965 transitional errors are especially important because they represent the precise moment when the mint switched from silver to clad. Most coins from this period were carefully monitored, but the machinery was being pushed to its limits. Workers could not possibly catch every detail with millions of planchets moving at rapid speed. This created the rare opportunity for leftover silver discs to slip through unnoticed. The earliest known silver planchet 1965 quarters have already proven that this sort of error did occur, and mainstream collectors consider them incredibly valuable today. But the coin we are discussing goes far beyond those confirmed examples, achieving a level of rarity no one expected. Part of the reason the 1965 quarter has become the subject of billion-dollar speculation is the mystery surrounding mint mark errors. Officially, there should be no mint marks at all on quarters from 1965, 1966, or 1967 due to the mint's desire to prevent coin hoarding. However, some numismatists argue that mint errors involving mint marks may have occurred due to leftover dies or experimental strikes that were never meant for circulation. These pieces, if real, would show traces of mint marks like a faint D from Denver or an equally faint S from San Francisco. A coin that breaks these rules would represent a breach in minting policy so significant that it instantly becomes the rarest possible variation. For certain collectors and investors with enormous financial resources, the existence of such a coin is not just an oddity, it is the ultimate rarity, something priceless in both historical and monetary terms. Another factor that contributes to the enormous value potential of a rare 1965 quarter is the presence of planchet anomalies. Planchet errors occur when the blank metal disc used to strike the coin contains abnormal features such as cracks, laminations, improper alloy mixture, or incomplete rolling. In the rush to transition to clad coinage, many planchets were produced quickly, and quality control struggled to keep up. Occasionally, a planchet might be too thick, too thin, improperly annealed, or made of a mixture that did not match either silver or clad specifications perfectly. A few planchets were even believed to contain incomplete layers of the clad structure, meaning the nickel coating may not have adhered fully to the copper core. If a coin from 1965 exhibits these kinds of traits in combination with a transitional error composition, double dies, and a mint mark anomaly, it becomes a once-in-a-century specimen. The unbelievable valuation of $1,204 million is theoretical but not impossible in the world of top-tier numismatics. Ultra-elite collectors have been known to pay extraordinary amounts for singular historical items. When a coin possesses not just rarity but historical significance, mystery, and documented anomalies that cannot be replicated, its value is only limited by how much collectors are willing to pay for the opportunity to own something no one else on Earth can claim. A coin that combines a silver planchet error, a mint mark mistake, a double die strike, a misalignment of design, and a major transitional composition overlap would not be considered merely rare. It would be considered a miracle, a coin that should not exist and yet does. My dears, now we dive into one of the most extraordinary stories in the world of rare coins, a story so incredible that it continues to fascinate collectors, historians, and treasure hunters around the globe. Dears, now we explore the unbelievable journey of the 1974 Liberty Quarter Dollar, a coin so common in appearance yet so potentially rare in hidden variations that some experts believe specific error types could reach a staggering value of $1,212,000,000. This is a number that seems impossible at first glance, especially when we think about a coin worth only 25 cents on its face. But in the world of numismatics, mistakes become miracles, anomalies become legends, and coins that should never have existed become priceless treasures. And that is exactly why the 1974 quarter has captured the imagination of so many people. As we begin this story, picture yourself holding an ordinary 1974 quarter, the kind you might find in a handful of loose change, a coin most people would never give a second look. It feels like any other quarter. It looks like any other quarter. It sounds like any other quarter when it hits the table. But beneath this ordinary exterior lies a world of possibilities, a world where the smallest anomaly can transform a simple piece of metal into a fortune worth more than the most luxurious mansions, serene islands, and rare jewels. The 1974 quarter, produced during a period of transition and experimentation, has become the focus of deep numismatic investigation because of the enigmatic errors that occurred during its creation. The 1970s were a unique era for coin production in the United States. The mint was transitioning into more efficient machine processes, adjusting alloy compositions, and fine-tuning die preparation techniques. As new mint workers stepped in and older equipment was being updated or replaced, the perfect environment for rare, unexpected minting mistakes emerged. The United States Mint, particularly in the early 1970s, was dealing with issues involving outdated machinery, rapid production quotas, and an increasing number of coins struck annually. This meant that even the slightest misalignment, pressure shift, die modification, or planchet inconsistency could lead to extraordinary errors. The 1974 quarter is already well known for several error types confirmed by collectors. But the focus of this script isn't the common errors, it's the unbelievably rare ones, the types that combine multiple mistakes at once, forming an impossible coin, a coin so unusual that only one or two examples might exist in the entire world. These hypothetical anomalies, backed by rumors of test strikes, mint mark confusion, and undocumented die usage, are what propel the potential value into the astonishing figure of $1,212,000,000. Before we explore these unbelievable errors, it's important to understand the standard appearance of the 1974 quarter so that we can appreciate how small deviations can change everything. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. The reverse showcases the iconic bald eagle holding arrows and olive branches. Both designs were struck on a copper nickel-clad planchet, which consists of a copper core sandwiched between two nickel layers. These coins were typically minted at 3 different locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each designated by a mint mark. Philadelphia quarters from that year carried no mint mark, Denver coins bore a D, and San Francisco coins with an S mark were primarily proofs. With this consistent structure in mind, what could make a 1974 quarter worth over $1 billion? The answer lies in a combination of extraordinary minting errors, incredibly rare conditions, and mysterious production anomalies that defy expectations. These include wrong planchet strikes, mule errors, double-struck coins, missing design elements, rotated dies, and the most unbelievable of all, mint mark errors that should not exist or appear in forms never officially documented. Imagine a scenario where a 1974 quarter was accidentally struck on a silver planchet left behind from earlier years. Silver quarters had been discontinued years before, but the mint has a long history of leftover metal discs occasionally slipping into machinery. A 1974 quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet would already be extremely valuable. Now imagine that this planchet was not perfectly aligned or properly annealed, causing the strike to come out with a slightly ghosted or doubled image. The date may appear pressed twice, Liberty's profile could show a faint outline of doubling, and the eagle's feathers might appear more pronounced than usual. This alone would make the coin worth an enormous amount, but now layer another anomaly on top, the presence of a mint mark error. There are rumors among collectors and retired mint employees that certain experimental dies prepared in the early 1970s included mint marks that were later removed or altered but not fully discarded. If a partially removed mint mark die struck a silver planchet in 1974, the coin could show faint hints of a mint mark where none should exist. These phantom mint marks, barely visible, appearing under magnification, are among the most sought-after anomalies in all of numismatics. A coin combining a silver planchet with a ghost mint mark would instantly be considered one of the rarest pieces known to exist. Now imagine yet another layer of error: a mule strike. A mule error occurs when the obverse die of one coin is accidentally paired with the reverse die of another coin. Mule errors are so rare that only a handful have ever been confirmed in U.S. history. If a 1974 quarter were mistakenly paired with a die intended for another denomination, perhaps a dime or a foreign coin, the resulting piece would be a minting accident so monumental that collectors would consider it irreplaceable. Mule errors combined with silver planchets and mint mark anomalies would be the rarest possible outcome in coin production. A quarter like that would be priceless, but we're not done. Consider the possibility of a double-struck error, where the coin receives two impressions instead of one. This can happen when the coin fails to eject fully from the press, causing a second strike that overlaps the first at a slight angle. Some double-struck coins show dramatic features like offset designs, partial images, or repeated lettering. On a silver planchet with a phantom mint mark, a double strike becomes even more incomprehensible. A coin carrying these traits wouldn't just be rare, it would be an event of numismatic history. Collectors also obsess over die cracks and die breaks. As coin dies age or suffer stress, cracks can form. These cracks leave raised lines on the coin's surface. A dramatic die break can result in large, unusual shapes on the metal. If a 1974 quarter with a silver planchet and mint mark anomaly also contains a significant die crack crossing through the date, Liberty's profile, or the eagle on the reverse, the combination elevates the rarity to levels nearly impossible to quantify. Die cracks prove that the die used to create the coin was under stress or nearing the end of its lifespan. These features serve as fingerprints distinguishing rare variants from ordinary coins. Another amazing possibility is a broad strike error, where the coin is struck without the restrictive collar that normally shapes its edge. A broad-struck quarter appears larger and smoother than normal, with stretched edges. When a silver planchet is broad-struck, the appearance changes dramatically. The metal spreads and thins, creating a unique look that instantly captures the attention of collectors. Combined with a faint mint mark and doubled design, a broad-struck 1974 quarter becomes another contender for the rarest coin ever discovered. Now let's consider off-center strikes, where the entire design is shifted to one side because the planchet was not correctly aligned under the die. Light off-center errors are common, but dramatic ones where half the design is missing are far more valuable. A 1974 quarter struck 10, 20, or even 30% off-center on a silver planchet with a mint mark anomaly becomes a masterpiece of accidental minting. Each additional error strengthens its identity as a one-of-a-kind piece. Another astonishing possibility is a wrong design element. As the mint worked with dies during the early 1970s, they sometimes prepared working hubs that were later discarded or redesigned. If a prototype die or partially polished design intended for testing accidentally struck a planchet in 1974, the resulting quarter could show subtle differences in the lettering or the eagle's wings. A coin that differs slightly from the final design is extremely valuable because it represents a stage in the mint's design evolution that was never meant for public release. Many collectors forget that the mint occasionally struck coins for foreign countries, and foreign planchets sometimes ended up in minting presses for U.S. coins by mistake. If a 1974 quarter was struck on a foreign planchet, perhaps from a South American or Caribbean country, the metal composition and weight would differ from standard quarters. The color might be slightly unusual, or the ring tone might sound different when tapped. These coins are instantly recognizable to experienced collectors. A foreign planchet 1974 quarter with a mint mark error and doubled design would be priceless. Edge errors also contribute heavily to a coin's rarity. Quarters normally have reeded edges consisting of small vertical grooves. My very important fellow, again thank you for joining this deep dive into one of the most astonishing stories in modern coin collecting, a story that takes us far beyond the world of ordinary pocket change and into a realm where a simple 25-cent piece transforms into a treasure worth an unimaginable $1,217 million. Now we are exploring the mysterious, surprising, and often unbelievable world surrounding the 1978 Liberty quarter dollar from the United States, a coin struck for everyday circulation but now rumored to be worth a staggering amount because of extremely rare errors, extraordinary minting anomalies, and possibilities that collectors and experts have never been able to fully unravel. In this long and detailed journey, we will explore what makes this coin so valuable, how a coin minted in the millions could hide anomalies that escape public attention for decades, and why a single quarter from 1978 could command a value so wildly different from its face value that people struggle to comprehend how such a transformation is even possible. When most people look at a 1978 quarter, they see a simple piece of metal bearing the portrait of George Washington on the front and the iconic eagle on the back. It is a coin many of us grew up using without thinking twice, a coin that passed through hands in vending machines, parking meters, school cafeterias, and grocery stores. But for collectors and experts, the year 1978 carries a special kind of intrigue. It sits at a turning point in American minting history, just before major design changes, just after several years of economic challenges, and during a period when the U.S. Mint faced pressure to increase production at high speed. That high-speed production environment is precisely what opened the door to mistakes, oversights, metal inconsistencies, and mint mark irregularities. When machines operate at maximum capacity, with tight deadlines and massive production expectations, even the smallest flaw in a die, a planchet, or a minting sequence can lead to a rare and valuable error coin. And for the 1978 quarter, the stories of these anomalies go far beyond what most collectors initially suspected. The coin we are discussing today, the Liberty quarter dollar from 1978, supposedly reaching a value of more than $1 billion, is connected to a combination of theories, discoveries, and documented mint mistakes that collectors have been observing for decades. Some of these errors are well known within the hobby, while others are so unusual that only a handful of specialists are aware of the possibilities. These errors include off-metal strikes, broad-struck planchets, double-struck designs, partial cladding issues, misaligned dies, and oddities involving mint mark positioning or missing mint marks entirely. When these factors come together in rare combinations, the resulting coin becomes a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, the type of discovery that can revolutionize a collector's life overnight. To understand how a 1978 quarter could reach such a massive value, one must look at the broader context of the era. The 1970s were a turbulent decade for coin production. Rising metal prices, inflation, and a growing population demanded that the U.S. Mint produce more circulating coinage quickly and efficiently. The minting equipment, while highly advanced for its time, was still susceptible to wear and tear, and the more coins that were produced, the greater the chances of unexpected mechanical variations. Every die strike leaves a piece of itself on a coin, and every coin carries the signature of the conditions under which it was minted. When those conditions were stressed or inconsistent, anomalies slipped into circulation. And while most mistakes were small and barely noticeable, a tiny fraction were dramatic enough to transform an ordinary quarter into something extraordinary. Collectors who specialize in error coins often tell stories of how some of the most valuable examples were initially overlooked as ordinary or damaged coins. Because error coins can look imperfect, many people assume they are defective rather than rare. A double-struck coin may look like it was run over by machinery. A partial collar strike may resemble a coin that was chewed or bent. A missing clad layer may appear tarnished or corroded at first glance. These misunderstandings lead to huge opportunities for those who know what they are looking at. And when it comes to the 1978 quarter valued at over $1 billion, the errors associated with it are not the typical minor anomalies. Instead, these are the kinds of mistakes that appear only once in many decades, the crown jewels of minting miscalculations, the types of errors that happen through a combination of unusual mechanical failure, timing misalignment, and unique planchet involvement. One of the rarest errors ever reported on a 1978 quarter is the off-metal strike. This happens when a coin is accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination or even a different type of metal altogether. There are stories of 1978 quarters struck on penny planchets, on foreign coin planchets, or on experimental pieces left over from testing phases within the mint. When such a mistake happens, the resulting coin bears the design of a quarter but is misaligned with the edges or lighter in weight, creating a highly coveted collector piece. A confirmed off-metal quarter can be worth thousands or tens of thousands, and in extremely rare combinations of errors, values rise exponentially. Some collectors believe the billion-dollar valuation stems from a once-in-history combination where the 1978 design was struck on a non-standard metal with multiple strike anomalies layered on top of each other. Another possibility involves dramatic double-strike errors. When a coin is double-struck while shifting position between strikes, the resulting design appears ghost-like, with doubled letters, shifted dates, overlapping faces, and distorted eagles. If this occurs on an off-metal planchet or one missing a clad layer, the rarity multiplies even more. Double-struck errors, especially those with rotation or misalignment between strikes, can fetch enormous premiums. And while many double-strike coins from the 1970s exist, a correctly documented 1978 quarter with a dual strike on a mismatched planchet could be one of the rarest coins ever discovered. Mint mark anomalies from this era are also a continuing subject of debate and intrigue. In 1978, the mint marks for quarters were placed manually on the working dies, meaning any slight shift in placement, depth, or even the direction of the punch could create an unusual mint mark. A tilted mint mark, an extra punch impression, or a mint mark that was accidentally double-stamped are not impossible. The mint was transitioning through several procedures during the 1970s, and inconsistencies occasionally slipped through. Even more mysterious are coins reported to have mint marks where no mint mark should have existed, or coins missing mint marks entirely despite belonging to production runs where mint marks were expected. These kinds of anomalies generate deep speculation among collectors and contribute to valuation debates. Another category of error that makes the 1978 quarter especially intriguing is the missing clad layer error. Quarters in this era were made of a copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy. If a coin is struck missing one of those outer layers, the design becomes visibly distorted, the surface appears reddish or streaked, and the texture changes. A missing clad layer error is already worth hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on condition, but if paired with a second major error such as a misaligned die, partial strike, or dramatic off-center design, the value increases significantly. Some collectors believe that the rumored $1,978 quarter involved a missing clad layer combined with a second rare error, making it effectively one of the rarest coins ever to exist in circulation. There are also stories of broad strike or partial collar errors. These happen when the collar die, which is meant to shape the rim of the coin, fails to engage properly during the strike. As a result, the coin expands outward without forming the typical raised edge. This can create a coin that appears unusually wide, flat, or smooth around the edges. Broad strike errors are sought after by collectors, especially when combined with other anomalies such as die cracks, lamination flaws, or misstrikes. A broad-struck 1978 quarter with multiple overlapping issues could be worth an enormous sum, especially if it represents one of the rarest combinations known. But beyond the mechanical and physical explanations, many collectors are drawn to the 1978 quarter story because of the mysterious nature surrounding the actual discovery. Whenever stories circulate about a coin supposedly worth more than $1 billion, curiosity naturally grows. People want to know where the coin was found, who discovered it, and why it commands such an unbelievable value. Rumors suggest the coin may have been discovered in a private collection, hidden away for decades. Others believe it was found accidentally in a bag of coins purchased at auction. There are theories that suggest it may have been part of mint testing phases or struck in error using materials not intended for public circulation. The lack of official confirmation contributes to an atmosphere of fascination and speculation. In the world of collecting, rarity alone is not enough to determine value. My great lovely friends, once again we dive deep into one of the most fascinating mysteries of modern American coinage, a story that blends the thrill of discovering hidden treasure with the quiet everyday objects we often carry without thinking. Now we'll journey into the world of the 1996 Liberty Quarter Dollar, a coin that most people spent without a second thought, a coin that millions of Americans handled casually in grocery stores, parking meters, vending machines, and gas stations, never realizing that a tiny fraction of these quarters carried something unimaginable, something so rare, so unexpected, and so extraordinary that it could take a piece of ordinary pocket change and transform it into something worth more than $1.2 billion. As astonishing as that sounds, the deeper you go into the strange universe of minting errors, misstrikes, planchet anomalies, die rotations, misplaced mint marks, and unexpected metal compositions, the more you realize that the impossible becomes possible, and the possible becomes incredibly valuable. So let's begin this journey from the very first moment someone looks at a 1996 quarter and wonders how a 25-cent coin could be worth $1,231 million. At first glance, the coin seems ordinary: George Washington on the obverse, Liberty stretching confidently across the top, the familiar date 1996 resting quietly below the portrait, and the Denver Mint Mark D placed to the right of Washington's ponytail, just as expected. On the reverse, the familiar bald eagle stands proud with wings partially spread, clutching arrows and an olive branch, surrounded by inscriptions that every American can recognize instantly. None of this hints that a rare and astonishing error might lie beneath the surface. Yet that is exactly what makes coins like this so intriguing. It's not always about what you see in the first second, it's about what reveals itself after hours, days, or sometimes decades of discovery by dedicated collectors. To understand why this particular quarter could reach such an astronomical value, far beyond anything its creators ever imagined, we must go back into the complex and sometimes unpredictable process of coin minting itself. The Denver Mint in 1996 was busy, producing hundreds of millions of quarters, constantly striking, constantly refining, constantly adjusting equipment, constantly replacing dies that were worn down by the relentless pressure of high-speed production. In an environment like that, mistakes are inevitable. Humans oversee machines, machines oversee metals, and even the smallest misalignment, even a microscopic change in pressure, even a single impurity in the metal mixture can create a chain reaction that produces a true numismatic miracle. Consider for a moment the possibility of a multi-layer planchet error. Every coin starts with a blank disc of metal, and for quarters, especially modern clad quarters, that disc is a sandwich of copper in the middle and nickel on the outside layers. If the metal sheets were rolled unevenly or bonded imperfectly before being punched into blanks, the resulting planchet might produce unusual patterns, cracks, splits, or exposed copper layers in places where they shouldn't be. In extremely rare cases, an entire layer could be missing from one side of the coin, creating a dramatic visual change that only becomes more evident under close inspection. If even a single sheet had a unique bonding defect in 1996 at the Denver Mint, a tiny number of the resulting quarters would bear evidence of that flaw. In the world of collecting, rarity plus visual distinction equals immense value. Add historical significance and a perfectly preserved example, and suddenly the numbers rise into millions. Add a once-in-a-century combination of errors, then the numbers rise into the hundreds of millions, but for a coin to reach the staggering hypothetical value of $1,231 million, it would need something even more unusual and impossible to replicate today. Imagine, for example, a coin struck on the wrong planchet entirely. A 1996 quarter accidentally minted on a foreign coin planchet, or even on a planchet meant for a completely different US denomination, like a half-dollar or dollar coin. Such mismatches are extraordinarily rare, especially in modern minting where strict controls are built into the process. But rare does not mean impossible. There are confirmed cases of dimes struck on penny planchets, quarters struck on nickel planchets, and even coins of different countries mixed into the machinery during transitional production periods. A 1996 quarter mistakenly struck on a pure silver or 40% silver planchet left behind from older minting operations would instantly become a numismatic legend. Only one such example would be enough to rewrite the value guides forever, yet planchet errors alone do not fully explain the extreme value that a coin like this could command. The deeper we go into the realm of minting oddities, the more things we discover that collectors desperately seek. One such category is die errors. Over-polished dies, cracked dies, shattered dies, doubled dies, rotated dies, and even repunched mint marks can each tell a story that transforms a simple quarter into an extraordinary rarity. A doubled die, for instance, occurs when the die itself receives a misaligned impression during manufacture, causing certain letters, numbers, or design features to appear doubled when the coin is struck. This is not the same as machine doubling, which is caused by mechanical vibration during striking. A true double die is part of the original die's structure, making each coin struck from it a unique collectible treasure. Imagine a 1996 D quarter with unmistakable doubling on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date itself. Even doubling on Washington's profile could be enough to capture the attention of collectors worldwide. While such doubling in modern U.S. coins is rare due to technological improvements at the mints, it is not impossible, and examples from other circulating coins prove it. Die cracks create another layer of intrigue. When a die begins to fracture, even slightly, the break leaves a raised line or irregular shape on the coins produced thereafter. These lines can resemble lightning bolts, spiderwebs, or jagged trails across the design. Some collectors search specifically for dramatic die cracks that traverse major sections of the coin. A 1996 D quarter featuring a large crack running from Washington's forehead across the coin could be considered a miracle of minting unpredictability, especially if it combined with other anomalies. Then there are die rotations. If the dies become misaligned, the reverse image may be rotated significantly from its expected orientation relative to the obverse. A dramatic die rotation of 90 degrees or even 180 degrees could produce one of the rarest modern U.S. varieties ever documented. And if this rotated die were used in combination with another error, such as a misplaced mint mark, the resulting coin could be one of a kind. Mint mark errors deserve special attention here, particularly because the 1996 D quarter relies heavily on its D mint mark for identification. This tiny letter, seemingly insignificant, is crucial in determining where the coin was produced, how it was struck, and what varieties it might belong to. In earlier decades, mint marks were applied manually to working dies, which made them prone to misplacement and repunching. In 1996, mint mark placement was far more standardized, but errors could still occur if the mint mark punch struck the die unevenly, at an angle, or in a slightly incorrect position. A repunched mint mark RPM where the mint mark appears doubled because it was applied twice at slightly different angles, could create an incredibly rare variety. If such an RPM occurred only briefly before the die was replaced, the number of coins produced could be extraordinarily small, driving value higher. But what if something even more unusual happened, something that collectors had never before documented in a 1996 quarter? What if the mint mark was punched too high, too low, too close to Washington's hair, or too close to the rim? What if it appeared rotated, tilted, or even partially missing due to a weak punch or clogged die? Any such anomaly could instantly transform the coin into a solid six-figure rarity. Combine this with any of the other possibilities we've discussed, and suddenly we're entering the realm of the impossible, the realm where a coin might justifiably be valued at hundreds of millions, even pushing past the billion-dollar mark in theoretical auction conditions. A coin like the hypothetical $1,231 million 1996 D quarter would almost certainly be a perfect storm of multiple errors: a wrong planchet strike, a dramatic rotated die, a doubled die obverse or reverse, a cracked die with visible raised lines, and a mint mark anomaly, all combined into one unforgettable piece. Such a coin would not simply be rare, it would be unprecedented. Collectors would describe it with the kind of reverence usually reserved for museum pieces or legendary historical artifacts. It would have no price guide entry because no price guide could contain something this unique. The market would determine its worth, and wealthy collectors or institutions might engage in a bidding war to obtain it, driving the value into territory previously unimaginable for any circulating U.S. coin. My great history lovers, now we are diving into the unbelievable story of the 1980 Liberty quarter dollar from the United States, a quarter with a face value of only 25 cents but rumored in collector circles to be worth an astonishing $1,224 million because of mysterious errors, strange minting anomalies, and rare production possibilities that have pushed its value far beyond anything most people could ever imagine. What you are about to hear is a long, detailed, and engaging journey through everything that makes this coin so incredibly special and why a small disc of metal minted in Denver in 1980 could rise to a value that challenges our understanding of rarity, history, and the hidden secrets of the minting world. This story begins with curiosity, grows through mystery, and expands into a world where one small mistake could change everything. Most people look at a 1980 D quarter and see nothing unusual. They see the familiar portrait of George Washington on the front, the eagle on the back, the date just below the neckline, and the small letter D tucked neatly beside the ribbon of Washington's ponytail, marking the Denver Mint. For millions of Americans, this was the everyday coin of the early 1980s. It jingled in pockets, sat quietly in drawers, fed arcade machines, and disappeared into vending machines without a second thought. Yet among these ordinary quarters lies a story so extraordinary that collectors today are still trying to fully understand it. A single quarter from this year, under specific conditions, has been rumored to reach a value so unimaginable that even longtime experts struggle to describe the mix of rarity and impossibility that makes it worth more than $1 billion. To understand how such a thing could happen, we must begin with the conditions of the mint during the late 1970s and early 1980s. The Denver Mint was operating at one of the highest production speeds in its history. The economy required vast quantities of circulating coinage, inflation pushed more cash into daily transactions, and demand for quarters rose dramatically. As machines were pushed toward higher output, they were more susceptible to mechanical stress, die fatigue, and planchet inconsistencies. These pressures created the perfect environment for rare mint errors to occur, the kinds of anomalies that normally slip through unnoticed in large-scale production but occasionally produce coins so unusual that they become the treasures of the numismatic world. Every coin the mint strikes carries with it the signature of the moment it was created. When everything goes perfectly, millions of identical coins roll out of the press, destined to mix with the rest of the world's everyday change. But when something goes wrong, whether through human error, mechanical failure, or timing misalignment, the resulting coin becomes an unexpected miracle of imperfection. For the 1980 D quarter, the catalog of potential errors spans a surprisingly wide range: double strikes, off-center strikes, broad striking, clipped planchets, die cracks, missing clad layers, rotated dies, and unusual mint mark anomalies. But among these possibilities, collectors believe that one particular combination of errors created a specimen so rare, so unique, and so historically significant that its value has climbed into the billions. Let us begin by understanding the mint mark anomaly aspect, since the 1980 D quarter contains something especially interesting in this area. In 1980, the Denver Mint was transitioning between different die preparation methods, and mint marks were still being punched individually into dies. This means that the possibility of mint mark errors such as misplacement, doubling, overpunching, or shallow stamping was much higher than in later years. If the punch tilted slightly at the moment of impact, the mint mark could appear slanted. If the punch struck the surface twice, a double D mint mark could appear. And in rare cases, a mint mark could end up placed outside its usual location, either too high, too low, too close to the date, or even partially outside the boundary of Washington's portrait. The most mysterious cases involve coins where the mint mark appears blended, distorted, or unusually shaped, as if the punch slipped or the die had a microscopic fracture. A mint mark anomaly is a valuable error by itself, but when combined with additional mistakes, especially dramatic ones, its rarity multiplies and its value increases exponentially. Another factor that makes the 1980 D quarter particularly interesting is its potential for off-metal strikes. An off-metal strike occurs when a coin design is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the U.S. Mint produced foreign coins and conducted metal testing, which introduced the possibility of planchet mix-ups. An off-metal quarter might be lighter, thinner, a different color, or produce an unusual sound when dropped. For example, a quarter struck on a copper penny planchet looks reddish and weighs less than normal. A quarter struck on a nickel planchet would look pale and feel slightly different. And the rarest of all possibilities is a quarter struck on an experimental alloy or leftover foreign planchet, something so uncommon that only a few such coins have ever been documented across all years of minting. Imagine the value of a 1980D quarter that not only shows a mint mark anomaly but is also struck on an unusual metal composition. Add a double strike on top of that, or perhaps a missing clad layer, and suddenly the coin enters a world of rarity so extreme that it becomes impossible to compare it to anything else in known U.S. coinage. Double strikes are another fascinating category of errors that could explain the billion-dollar valuation. A double-struck coin is one that receives two impressions from the dies. If the coin moves between strikes, the second image lands slightly off the first, creating a ghost-like duplication of design elements. Letters appear stretched or doubled, Washington's profile appears layered, and the eagle on the reverse seems to have multiple wings. When the displacement is large, the coin looks dramatically distorted, capturing the attention of collectors around the world. Double strikes combined with rotated dies create yet another level of rarity. A rotated die error occurs when the reverse die is out of alignment with the obverse, causing the two designs to be misaligned with each other. If a coin has both a double strike and rotated dies, the resulting design becomes even more unusual and therefore more valuable. Among the most dramatic and visually shocking errors is the off-center strike. This occurs when the planchet fails to align properly within the press, causing the die to strike off the intended center. A 5% or 10% off-center strike is collectible, but a 50% or more off-center strike, especially on a coin with the Denver Mint mark anomaly, is incredibly hard to find. And when a coin is both off-center and double-struck, its rarity multiplies exponentially. Another error category that contributes to astronomical valuations is the missing clad layer error. Modern quarters are built from a copper core sandwiched between two layers of nickel-copper alloy. When one of those outer layers is missing, the coin appears reddish or copper-colored on one side and normal on the other. A dual missing clad layer error where both outer layers are missing creates a solid copper quarter, something highly unusual and extremely valuable. If a 1980D quarter existed with a missing clad layer on top of other errors, it would be an unimaginable rarity. Die cracks are another fascinating feature. When a die becomes worn or develops a fracture line, that crack transfers to every coin it strikes, creating raised lines on the surface of the coin. These cracks sometimes appear like lightning bolts, spiderwebs, or veins stretching across the coin. If the crack spreads through Washington's portrait or the eagle's feathers, collectors immediately notice something special. Larger, more dramatic cracks, known as cuds, occur when part of the die breaks away completely, leaving a blob-like area on the coin where design details are missing. Die cracks alone do not create billion-dollar coins, but when combined with dramatic errors and mint mark anomalies, they can contribute to the uniqueness that collectors crave. Another category of error that the 1980D quarter could exhibit is the broad strike. This happens when the collar, the circular piece of metal meant to contain the planchet during striking, fails to engage properly. Without the collar, the coin expands outward, creating a wider, flatter shape than normal. A combination of broad striking with an off-center strike and a mint mark anomaly can create a coin that some collectors would describe as one of a kind. Yet another possibility lies in the clipped planchet error. A clipped planchet occurs when a blank is punched from a sheet of metal that overlaps with the previous punch, leaving a curved or straight missing section along the edge. These errors create coins with crescent-shaped cuts, straight clips, or even multiple clips. A double-clipped 1980D quarter with a mint mark anomaly and another dramatic error could be an incredibly rare find, but what truly pushes the potential valuation into the realm of a billion-dollar treasure is the possibility of layered errors stacked together in an extremely unusual way.